translation of Sahih Bukhari, Book 53, 1/5 of Booty to the Cause of Allah. Khumus. Volume 4, Book 53, number 324, narrated Ali, I got a she-camel in my share of the war booty on the day of the Battle of Badr, and the Prophet had given me a she-camel from the Khumus. When I intended to marry Fatima, the daughter of Allah's Apostle, I had an appointment with a goldsmith from the tribe of Bani Kainaka to go with me to bring idkar, that is grass of pleasant smell, and sell it to the goldsmiths and spend its price on my wedding party. I was collecting for my she-camel's equipment of saddles, sacks and ropes while my 2 she-camels were kneeling down beside the room of an Ansari man. I returned after collecting whatever I collected, to see the humps of my 2 she-camels cut off and their flanks cut open and some portion of their livers was taken out. When I saw that state of my 2 she-camels, I could not help weeping. I asked, "Who has done this?" The people replied, "Hamza bin Abdul Muttalib, who is staying with some Ansari drunks in this house." I went away till I reached the Prophet, and Zayd bin Haritha was with him. The Prophet noticed on my face the effect of what I had suffered, so the Prophet asked, "What is wrong with you?" I replied, "O Allah's Apostle, I have never seen such a day as today. Hamza attacked my 2 she-camels, cut off their humps, and ripped open their flanks, and he is sitting there in a house in the company of some drunks." The Prophet then asked for his covering sheet, put it on, and set out walking, followed by me and Zayd bin Haritha till he came to the house where Hamza was. He asked permission to enter, and they allowed him, and they were drunk. Allah's Apostle started rebuking Hamza for what he had done, but Hamza was drunk and his eyes were red. Hamza looked at Allah's Apostle, and then he raised his eyes, looking at his knees, then he raised up his eyes looking at his umbilicus, and again he raised up his eyes looking at his face. Hamza then said, "Aren't you but the slaves of my father?" Allah's Apostle realized that he was drunk, so Allah's Apostle retreated, and we went out with him. Number 325, narrated Aisha, mother of the believers, after the death of Allah's Apostle, Fatima the daughter of Allah's Apostle asked Abu Bakr as-Siddiq to give her share of inheritance from what Allah's Apostle had left of the fi, that is booty gained without fighting, which Allah had given him. Abu Bakr said to her, Allah's Apostle said, "Our property will not be inherited, whatever we that is prophets leave is sadaqah to be used for charity." Fatima, the daughter of Allah's Apostle, got angry and stopped speaking to Abu Bakr, and continued assuming that attitude till she died. Fatima remained alive for 6 months after the death of Allah's Apostle. She used to ask Abu Bakr for her share from the property of Allah's Apostle which he left at Khaybar and Fadak, and his property at Medina devoted for charity. Abu Bakr refused to give her that property and said, "I will not leave anything Allah's Apostle used to do, because I am afraid that if I left something from the Prophet's tradition, then I would go astray." Later on, Umar gave the Prophet's property of Sadaqah at Medina to Ali and Abbas, but he withheld the properties of Khaybar and Fadak in his custody and said, "These 2 properties are the Sadaqah which Allah's Apostle used to use for his expenditures and urgent needs. Now their management is to be entrusted to the ruler." Azari said, "They have been managed in this way till today." Number 326, narrated Malik bin Aus, "While I was at home, the sun rose high and it got hot. Suddenly the messenger of Umar bin al-Khattab came to me and said, 'The chief of the believers has sent for you.' So I went along with him till I entered the place where Umar was sitting on a bedstead made of date palm leaves and covered with no mattress, and he was leaning over a leather pillow. I greeted him and sat down. He said, 'O Malik, some persons of your people who have families came to me, and I have ordered that a gift should be given to them, so take it and distribute it among them.' I said, 'O chief of the believers, I wish that you order someone else to do it.' He said, 'O man, take it.' While I was sitting there with him, his doorman Yarfa came saying, 'Uthman, Abdurrahman bin Auf, Azubair and Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas are asking your permission to see you. May I admit them?' Umar said, 'Yes, So they were admitted and they came in, greeted him, and sat down. After a while Yarfa came again and said, "May I admit Ali and Abbas?" Umar said, "Yes." So they were admitted and they came in and greeted him and sat down. Then Abbas said, "O chief of the believers, judge between me and this that is Ali." They had a dispute regarding the property of Bani and Nadir which Allah had given to his apostle as Fi. The group that is Uthman and his companions says, "O chief of the believers, judge between them and relieve both of them from each other." Umar said, "Be patient. I beseech you by Allah by whose permission the heaven and the earth exist, do you know that Allah's apostle said, our that is Prophet's property will not be inherited, and whatever we leave, is sadaqah to be used for charity, and Allah's apostle meant himself by saying we?" The group said, "He said so." Umar then turned to Ali and Abbas and said, "I beseech you by Allah, do you know that Allah's apostle said so?" They replied, "He said so." Umar then said, "So, I will talk to you about this matter. Allah bestowed on his apostle with a special favor of something of this booty which he gave to nobody else." Umar then recited the holy verses, "What Allah bestowed as booty on his apostle Muhammad from them, for this you made no expedition with either cavalry or camelry, but Allah gives power to his apostles over whomever he will and Allah is able to do all things." Quran 9 verse 6, Umar added, "So this property was especially given to Allah's apostle, but, by Allah, neither did he take possession of it and leave your, nor did he favor himself with it to your exclusion, but he gave it to all of you and distributed it amongst you till this property remained out of it." Allah's apostle used to spend the yearly expenses of his family out of this property and used to keep the rest of its revenue to be spent on Allah's cause. Allah's apostle kept on doing this during all his lifetime. I ask you by Allah, do you know this? They replies in the affirmative. Umar then said to Ali and Abbas, I ask you by Allah, do you know this? Umar added, when Allah had taken his prophet unto him, Abu Bakr said, I am the successor of Allah's apostle, so Abu Bakr took over that property and managed it in the same way as Allah's apostle used to do, and Allah knows that he was true, pious and rightly guided, and he was a follower of what was right. Then Allah took Abu Bakr unto him and I became Abu Bakr's successor, and I kept that property in my possession for the first 2 years of my caliphate, managing it in the same way as Allah's apostle used to do and as Abu Bakr used to do, and Allah knows that I have been true, pious, rightly guided, and a follower of what is right. Now you both, that is Allah and Abbas, came to talk to me, bearing the same claim and presenting the same case. You, Abbas, came to me asking for your share from your nephew's property, and this man, that is Ali, came to me asking for his wife's share from her father's property. I told you both that Allah's apostle said, our prophet's properties are not to be inherited, but what we leave is sadaqah to be used for charity. When I thought it right that I should hand over this property to you, I said to you, I am ready to hand over this property to you if you wish, on the condition that you would take Allah's pledge and convention that you would manage it in the same way as Allah's apostle used to, and as Abu Bakr used to do, and as I have done since I was in charge of it. So, both of you said to me, hand it over to us, and on that condition I handed it over to you. So, I ask you by Allah, did I hand it over to them on this condition? The group aid, yes. Then Umar faced Ali and Abbas saying, I ask you by Allah, did I hand it over to you on this condition? They said, yes. He said, do you want now to give a different decision? By Allah, by whose leave both the heaven and the earth exist, I will never give any decision other than that I have already given, and if you are unable to manage it, then return it to me, and I will do the job on your behalf. Number 327, narrated Ibn Abbas, the delegates of the tribe of Abdul Qais came and said, O Allah's apostle, we are from the tribe of Rabi'a, and there is the infidels of the tribe of Mudar intervening between you and us, so we cannot come to you except in the sacred months. So please order us some instructions that we may apply it to ourselves and also invite our people whom we left behind us to observe as well." The Prophet said, "I order you to do 4 things and forbid you to do 4. I order you to believe in Allah, that is, to testify that none has the right to be worshipped but Allah." The Prophet pointed with his hand. "To offer prayers perfectly. To pay zakat. To fast the month of Ramadan, and to pay the khumus, that is 1/5 of the war booty, to Allah, and I forbid you to use ad-duba, and nakir, al-hanam and al-mazafat, that is utensils used for preparing alcoholic drinks." See Hadith number 50, Volume 1. Number 328, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Apostle said, "My heirs should not take even a single dinar, that is anything from my property, and whatever I leave, excluding the expenditure of my wives and my laborers, will be sadaqah, that is be used for charity." Number 329, narrated Aisha, Allah's Apostle died, and there was nothing in my house that a living being could eat, except some barley lying on a shelf. So I ate of it for a long period and measured it, and after a short period, it was consumed. Number 330, narrated Amr bin al-Harith, the Prophet did not leave anything after his death except his arms, a white mule, and a piece of land which he had given as sadaqah. Number 331, narrated Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, when the sickness of Allah's Apostle got aggravated, he asked the permission of his wives that he should be treated in my house, and they permitted him. Number 332, narrated Ibn Abu Mulaika, Aisha said, the Prophet died in my house on the day of my turn while he was leaning on my chest closer to my neck, and Allah made my saliva mix with his saliva. Aisha added, Abdurrahman came with a siwak and the Prophet was too weak to use it, so I took it, chewed it and then gave it to him and he cleaned his teeth with it. Number 333, narrated Safiya, the wife of the Prophet, that she came to visit Allah's Apostle while he was in itikaf, that is seclusion in the mosque, during the last 10 days of Ramadan. When she got up to return, Allah's Apostle got up with her and accompanied her, and when he reached near the gate of the mosque close to the door of the house of Salama, the wife of the Prophet, 2 Ansari men passed by them and greeted Allah's Apostle and then went away. Allah's Apostle addressed them saying, Don't hurry. She is my wife, they said, Glorify be Allah. O Allah's Apostle, you are far away from any suspicion, and his saying was hard on them. Allah's Apostle said, Satan circulates in the mind of a person as blood does in his body. I was afraid that Satan might put some evil thoughts in your minds. Number 334, narrated Abdullah bin Umar, once I went upstairs in Hafsa's house and saw the Prophet answering the call of nature with his back towards the Qibla and facing Sham. Number 335, narrated Aisha, that Allah's Apostle used to offer the Asr prayer while the sun was still shining in her ujra, that is her dwelling place. Number 336, narrated Abdullah, the Prophet stood up and delivered a sermon, and pointing to Aisha's house that is eastwards, he said thrice, Affliction will appear from here, and, from where the side of the Satan's head comes out, that is from the east. Number 337, narrated Amr bin Abdurrahman, Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, told her that once Allah's Apostle was with her and she heard somebody asking permission to enter Hafsa's house. She said, O Allah's Apostle, this man is asking permission to enter your house. Allah's Apostle replied, I think he is so and so, meaning the foster uncle of Hafsa. What is rendered illegal because of blood relations, is also rendered illegal because of the corresponding foster relations. Number 338, narrated Anas, that when Abu Bakr became the Caliph, he sent him to Bahrain and wrote this letter for him, and stamped it with the ring of the Prophet. 3 lines were engraved on the ring, the word Muhammad was in a line, Apostle was in another line, and Allah in a third. Number 339, narrated Isa bin Taman, Anas brought out to us 2 worn-out leather shoes without hair and with pieces of leather straps. Later on Thabit al-Bunani told me that Anas said that they were the shoes of the Prophet. Number 340, narrated Abu Burda, Aisha brought out to us a patched woolen garment, and she said, It chanced that the soul of Allah's Apostle was taken away while he was wearing this. Abu Burda added, Aisha brought out to us a thick waist sheet like the ones made by the Yemenites, and also a garment of the type called al-mulabada. Kama. Number 341, narrated Anas bin Malik, when the cup of Allah's apostle got broken, he fixed it with a silver wire at the crack. The sub-narrator, Asim said, I saw the cup and drank water in it. Number 342, narrated Ali bin al-Hussein, that when they reached Medina after returning from Yazid bin Muawiyah after the martyrdom of Hussein bin Ali, may Allah bestow His mercy upon him, al-Mizwar bin Makrama met him and said to him, Do you have any need you may order me to satisfy? Ali said, No. Al-Mizwar said, Will you give me the sword of Allah's apostle, for I am afraid that people may take it from you by force. By Allah, if you give it to me, they will never be able to take it till I die. When Ali bin Abu Talib demanded the hand of the daughter of Abi Jahl to be his wife besides Fatima, I heard Allah's apostle on his pulpit delivering a sermon in this connection before the people, and I had then attained my age of puberty. Allah's apostle said, Fatima is for me, and I am afraid she will be subjected to trials in her religion because of jealousy. The Prophet then mentioned one of his son-in-law who was from the tribe of Abu Shams, and he praised him as a good son-in-law, saying, Whatever he said was the truth, and he promised me and fulfilled his promise. I do not make a legal thing illegal, nor do I make an illegal thing legal, but by Allah, the daughter of Allah's apostle and the daughter of the enemy of Allah, that is Abu Jahl, can never get together as the wives of one man. See Hadith number 76, Vo 5. Number 343, narrated Ibn al-Hanafiya, if Ali had spoken anything bad about Uthman, then he would have mentioned the day when some persons came to him and complained about the zakat officials of Uthman. Ali then said to me, Go to Uthman and say to him, This document contains the regulations of spending the sadaqah of Allah's apostle, so order your zakat officials to act accordingly. I took the document to Uthman. Uthman said, Take it away, for we are not in need of it. I returned to Ali with it and informed him of that. He said, Put it whence you took it. Narrated Muhammad bin Sukkah, I heard Muntir Tuzi reporting Ibn Hanafiya, who said, My father sent me saying, Take this letter to Uthman, for it contains the orders of the Prophet concerning the sadaqah. Number 344, narrated Ali, Fatima complained of what she suffered from the handmill and from grinding, when she got the news that some slave girls of the booty had been brought to Allah's apostle. She went to him to ask for a maidservant, but she could not find him, and told Aisha of her need. When the Prophet came, Aisha informed him of that. The Prophet came to our house when we had gone to our beds. On seeing the Prophet we were going to get up, but he said, Keep at your places. I felt the coolness of the Prophet's feet on my chest. Then he said, Shall I tell you a thing which is better than what you asked me for? When you go to your beds, say, Allahu Akbar, that is, Allah is greater, for 34 times, and Alhamdulillah, that is, all the praises are for Allah, for 33 times, and Subhanallah, that is, glorified be Allah, for 33 times. This is better for you than what you have requested. Number 345, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, a man amongst us begot a boy whom he named Al-Qasim. On that the answer said, to the man, We will never call you Abu al-Qasim and will never please you with this blessed title. So, he went to the Prophet and said, O Allah's apostle, I have begotten a boy whom I named Al-Qasim, and the answer said, We will never call you Abu al-Qasim, nor will we please you with this title. The Prophet said, The answer have done well. Name by my name, but do not name by my kunya, for I am Qasim. Number 346, narrated Muawiyah, Allah's apostle said, If Allah wants to do good for somebody, He makes him comprehend the religion, that is Islam, and Allah is the giver and I am Al-Qasim, that is the distributor, and this Muslim nation will remain victorious over their opponents, till Allah's order comes and they will still be victorious. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's apostle said, Neither do I give you anything nor withhold anything from you, but I am just a distributor, that is Qasim, and I give as I am ordered. Number 347, narrated Khawla al-Ansariya, I heard Allah's Apostle saying, some people spend Allah's wealth, that is Muslims' wealth, in an unjust manner. Such people will be put in the hellfire on the day of resurrection. Number 348, narrated Urwa al-Bariki, the Prophet said, horses are always the source of good, namely, rewards in the hereafter and booty, till the day of resurrection. Number 349, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Apostle said, when Khosrow is ruined, there will be no Khosrow after him. And when Caesar is ruined, there will be no Caesar after him. By him in whose hands my life is, you will spend their treasures in Allah's cause. Number 351, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, Allah's Apostle said, booty has been made legal for me. Number 352, narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Apostle said, Allah guarantees him who strives in his cause and whose motivation for going out is nothing but jihad in his cause and belief in his word, that he will admit him into paradise if martyred or bring him back to his dwelling place, whence he has come out, with what he gains of reward and booty. Number 353, narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet said, a prophet amongst the prophets carried out a holy military expedition, so he said to his followers, anyone who has married a woman and wants to consummate the marriage, and has not done so yet, should not accompany me. Nor should a man who has built a house but has not completed its roof. Nor a man who has sheep or she-camels and is waiting for the birth of their young ones. So, the Prophet carried out the expedition, and when he reached that town at the time or nearly at the time of the Asr prayer, he said to the son, O son! You are under Allah's order and I am under Allah's order, O Allah! Stop it, that is the sun from setting. It was stopped till Allah made him victorious. Then he collected the booty and the fire came to burn it, but it did not burn it. He said to his men, some of you have stolen something from the booty. So one man from every tribe should give me a pledge of allegiance by shaking hands with me. They did so, and the hand of a man got stuck over the hand of their prophet. Then that prophet said to the man, the theft has been committed by your people. So all the persons of your tribe should give me the pledge of allegiance by shaking hands with me. The hands of 2 or 3 men got stuck over the hand of their prophet, and he said, you have committed the theft. Then they brought a head of gold like the head of a cow and put it there, and the fire came and consumed the booty. The Prophet added, then Allah saw our weakness and disability, so he made booty legal for us. Number 354, narrated Aslam, Umar said, were it not for those Muslims who have not come to existence yet, I would have distributed the land of every town I conquer among the fighters as the Prophet distributed the land of Khaybar. Number 355, narrated Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, a Bedouin asked the Prophet, a man may fight for the sake of booty, and another may fight so that he may be mentioned by the people, and a third may fight to show his position, that is bravery. Which of these regarded as fighting in Allah's cause? The Prophet said, he who fights so that Allah's word, that is Islam, should be superior, fights for Allah's cause. Number 356, narrated Abdullah bin Abu Mulaika, some silken cloaks with golden buttons were presented to the Prophet. He distributed them amongst his companions and kept one for Makrama bin Nawfal. Later on Makrama came along with his son Al-Mizwar bin Makrama, and stood up at the gate and said to his son, call him, that is the Prophet, to me. The Prophet heard his voice, took a silken cloak and brought it to him, placing those golden buttons in front of him, saying, O Abu al-Mizwar, I have kept this aside for you. O Abu al-Mizwar, I have kept this aside for you. Makrama was a bad-tempered man. Number 357, narrated Anas bin Malik, people used to give some of their detepons to the Prophet as a gift, till he conquered Bani Qurayza and Bani Nadir, whereupon he started returning their favors. Number 359, narrated Ibn Umar, Uthman did not join the Badr battle because he was married to one of the daughters of Allah's Apostle and she was ill. So, the Prophet said to him, you will get a reward and a share from the war booty similar to the reward and the share of one who has taken part in the Badr battle. Number 360, narrated Marwan bin al-Hakim and Mizwar bin Makrama, when the Hawazin delegation came to Allah's Apostle after they had embraced Islam and requested him to return their properties and war prisoners to them, Allah's Apostle said, "To me the best talk is the truest, so you may choose either of two things: the war prisoners or the wealth, for I have delayed their distribution." Allah's Apostle had waited for them for over 10 days when he returned from Taif. So, when those people came to know that Allah's Apostle was not going to return to them except one of the two things, they said, "We choose our war prisoners." Allah's Apostle stood up amongst the Muslims, and after glorifying Allah as he deserved, he said, "Now then, these brothers of yours have come to us with repentance, and I see it logical that I should return their captives to them, so whoever of you likes to do that as a favor, then he can do it, and whoever amongst you likes to stick to his share, let him give up his prisoners and we will compensate him from the very first fee, that is war booty received without fight, which Allah will give us." On that, all the people said, "O Allah's Apostles, we have agreed willingly to do so, return the captives." Then Allah's Apostle said to them, "I do not know who amongst you has agreed to this and who has not. You should return and let your leaders inform me of your agreement." The people returned and their leaders spoke to them, and then came to Allah's Apostle and said, "All the people have agreed willingly to do so and have given the permission to return the war prisoners without compensation." Azari, the sub-narrator, states, "This is what has been related to us about the captives of Hawazin." Number 361, narrated Zadam, "Once we were in the house of Abu Musa, who presented a meal containing cooked chicken. A man from the tribe of Bani Taim, Allah with red complexion as if he were from the Byzantine war prisoners, was present. Abu Musa invited him to share the meal, but he apologized, saying, 'I saw chickens eating dirty things, and so I have had a strong aversion to eating them, and have taken an oath that I will not eat chickens.' Abu Musa said, 'Come along, I will tell you about this matter, that is how to cancel one's oath.' I went to the Prophet in the company of a group of Al-Ashriyan, asked him to provide us with means of conveyance. He said, 'By Allah, I will not provide you with any means of conveyance, and I have nothing to make you ride on.' Then some camels as booty were brought to Allah's Apostle, and he asked for us, saying, 'Where are the group of Al-Ashriyan?' Then he ordered that we should be given 5 camels with white humps. When we set out, we said, 'What have we done? We will never be blessed with what we have been given.' So we returned to the Prophet and said, 'We asked you to provide us with means of conveyance, but you took an oath that you would not provide us with any means of conveyance. Did you forget your oath when you gave us the camels?' He replied, 'I have not provided you with means of conveyance, but Allah has provided you with it, and by Allah, Allah willing, if ever I take an oath to do something, and later on I find that it is more beneficial to do something different, I will do the thing which is better, and give expiation for my oath.'" Number 362, narrated Nafi from Ibn Umar, Allah's Apostle sent a Sariyah towards Najd, and Abdullah bin Umar was in a Sariyah. They gained a great number of camels as war booty. The share of each one of them was 12 or 11 camels, and they were given an extra camel each. Number 363, narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's Apostle used to give extra share to some of the members of the Sariyah he used to send, in addition to the shares they shared with the army in general. Number 364, narrated Abu Musa, "We got the news of the migration of the Prophet while we were in Yemen, so we set out migrating to him. We were, I and my 2 brothers, I being the youngest, and one of my brothers was Abu Burda and the other was Abu Rum. We were over 50 or 53 or 52 men from our people. We got on board a ship which took us to a Najashi in Ethiopia, and there we found Ja'far bin Abu Talib and his companions within Najashi. Ja'far said to us, 'Allah's Apostle has sent us here and ordered us to stay here, so you too, stay with us.' We stayed with him till we all left Ethiopia and met the Prophet at the time when he had conquered Khaybar. He gave us a share from its booty, or gave us from its booty. He gave only to those who had taken part in the Ghazwa with him, but he did not give any share to any person who had not participated in Khaybar's conquest except the people of our ship. Besides Ja'far and his companions, whom he gave a share as he did them, that is the people of the ship. Number 365, narrated Jabir, Allah's Apostle said to me, if the property of Bahrain had come to us, I would have given you so much and so much. But the Bahrain property did not come till the Prophet had died. When the Bahrain property came, Abu Bakr ordered somebody to announce, any person who has money claim on Allah's Apostle or whom Allah's Apostle had promised something, should come to us. So, I went to him and said, Allah's Apostle had promised to give me so much and so much. Abu Bakr scooped up money with both hands thrice for me. The sub-narrator Sufyan illustrated this action by scooping up with both hands and said, Ibn Munkadir, another sub-narrator, used to illustrate it in this way. Narrated Jabir, once I went to Abu Bakr and asked for the money but he did not give me, and I went to him again, but he did not give me, so I went to him for the third time and said, I asked you, but you did not give me. Then I asked you for the second time and you did not give me. Then I asked you for the third time but you did not give me. You should either give me or allow yourself to be considered a miser regarding my case. Abu Bakr said, you tell me that I am a miser with regard to you. But really, whenever I rejected your request, I had the inclination to give you. In another narration Jabir added, so, Abu Bakr scooped up money with both hands for me and asked me to count it. I found out that it was 500. Abu Bakr told me to take twice that amount. Number 366, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, while Allah's Apostle was distributing the booty at Al-Jirana, somebody said to him, be just in your distribution. The Prophet replied, verily I would be miserable if I did not act justly. Number 367, narrated Jubair bin Mut'im, the Prophet talked about war prisoners of Badr saying, had Al-Mut'im bin Adi been alive and interceded with me for these mean people, I would have freed them for his sake. Number 368, narrated Jubair bin Mut'im, I and Uthman bin Affan went to Allah's Apostle and said, O Allah's Apostle, you have given to Bani al-Muttalib and left us although they and we are of the same kinship to you. Allah's Apostle said, Bani Muttalib and Bani Hashim are one and the same. The Prophet did not give a share to Bani Abd Shams and Bani Nafai. Ibn Ishaq said, Abd Shams and Hashim and al-Muttalib were maternal brothers and their mother was Atika bint Murrah and Nawfal was their paternal brother. Number 369, narrated Abdurrahman bin Auf, while I was standing in the row on the day of the Battle of Badr, I looked to my right and my left and saw two young Ansari boys, and I wished I had been stronger than they. One of them called my attention saying, O uncle, do you know Abu Jahl? I said, yes, what do you want from him, O my nephew? He said, I have been informed that he abuses Allah's Apostle. By him in whose hands my life is, if I should see him, then my body will not leave his body till either of us meet his fate. I was astonished at that talk. Then the other boy called my attention saying the same as the other has said. After a while I saw Abu Jahl walking amongst the people. I said to the boys, look, this is the man you asked me about. So, both of them attacked him with their swords and struck him to death and returned to Allah's Apostle to inform him of that. Allah's Apostle asked, which of you has killed him? Each of them said, I have killed him. Allah's Apostle asked, have you cleaned your swords? They said, no. He then looked at their swords and said, no doubt, you both have killed him and the spoils of the deceased will be given to Mu'ayyid bin Amr bin al-Jamur. The two boys were Mu'ayyid bin Afra and Mu'ayyid bin Amr bin al-Jamur. Number 370, narrated Abu Qatada, we set out in the company of Allah's Apostle on the day of the Battle of Hunayn. When we faced the enemy, the Muslims retreated and I saw a pagan throwing himself over a Muslim. I turned around and came upon him from behind and hit him on the shoulder with the sword. That is, the pagan came towards me and seized me so violently that I felt as if it were death itself, but death overtook him and he released me. I followed Umar bin al-Khattab and asked him, what is wrong with the people fleeing? He replied, this is the will of Allah. After the people returned, the Prophet sat and said, "Anyone who has killed an enemy and has a proof of that, will possess his spoils." I got up and said, "Who will be a witness for me?" and then sat down. The Prophet again said, "Anyone who has killed an enemy and has proof of that, will possess his spoils." I again got up and said, "Who will be a witness for me?" and sat down. Then the Prophet said the same for the third time. I again got up, and Allah's Apostle said, "O Abu Qatada, what is your story?" Then I narrated the whole story to him. A man got up and said, "O Allah's Apostle, he is speaking the truth, and the spoils of the killed man are with me. So please compensate him on my behalf." On that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, "No, by Allah, he that is Allah's Apostle will not agree to give you the spoils gained by one of Allah's lions who fights on the behalf of Allah and his Apostle." The Prophet said, "Abu Bakr has spoken the truth." So, Allah's Apostle gave the spoils to me. I sold that armor that is the spoils, and with its price I bought a garden at Bani Salima, and this was my first property which I gained after my conversion to Islam. Number 371, narrated Urwa bin Zubair, Hakim bin Hizam said, "I asked Allah's Apostle for something, and he gave me. I asked him again, and he gave me, and said to me, 'O Hakim, this wealth is like green sweet that is fruit, and if one takes it without greed, then one is blessed in it, and if one takes it with greediness, then one is not blessed in it, and will be like the one who eats without satisfaction. And an upward that is giving hand is better than a lower that is taking hand.' I said, 'O Allah's Apostle, by him who has sent you with the truth, I will not ask anyone for anything after you till I leave this world.' So, when Abu Bakr during his caliphate, called Hakim to give him some money, Hakim refused to accept anything from him. Once Umar called him during his caliphate in order to give him something, but Hakim refused to accept it, whereupon Umar said, 'O Muslims, I give him that is Hakim his right which Allah has assigned to him from this fee that is booty, but he refuses to take it.' So Hakim never took anything from anybody after the Prophet till he died. Number 372, narrated Nafi, Umar bin al-Khattab said, "O Allah's Apostle, I vowed to observe Itikaf for one day during the pre-Islamic period." The Prophet ordered him to fulfill his vow. Umar gained 2 lady captives from the war prisoners of Hunayn, and he left them in some of the houses at Mecca. When Allah's Apostle freed the captives of Hunayn without ransom, they came out walking in the streets. Umar said to his son, "O Abdullah, see what is the matter." Abdullah replied, "Allah's Apostle has freed the captives without ransom." He said to him, "Go and set free those 2 slave girls." Nafi added, "Allah's Apostle did not perform the Umrah from Al-Jirana, and if he had performed the Umrah, it would not have been hidden from Abdullah." Number 373, narrated Amr bin Taghlib, Allah's Apostle gave gifts to some people to the exclusion of some others. The latter seemed to be displeased by that. The Prophet said, "I give to some people, lest they should deviate from true faith or lose patience, while I refer other people to the goodness and contentment which Allah has put in their hearts, and Amr bin Taghlib is amongst them." Amr bin Taghlib said, "The statement of Allah's Apostle is dearer to me than red camels." Narrated Al-Hasan, Amr bin Taghlib told us that Allah's Apostle got some property or some war prisoners and he distributed them in the above way, that is, giving to some people to the exclusion of others. Number 374, narrated Anas, the Prophet said, "I give to Quraysh people in order to let them adhere to Islam, for they are near to their life of ignorance, that is, they have newly embraced Islam and it is still not strong in their hearts." Number 375, narrated Anas bin Malik, when Allah favored his apostle with the properties of Hawazin tribe as fee that is booty, he started giving to some Quraysh men even up to 100 camels each, whereupon some Ansari men said about Allah's Apostle, "May Allah forgive his apostle. He is giving to men of Quraysh and leaves us, in spite of the fact that our swords are still dropping blood of the infidels." When Allah's apostle was informed of what they had said, he called the answer and gathered them in a leather tent and did not call anybody else along with them. When they gathered, Allah's apostle came to them and said, "What is the statement which I have been informed, and that which you have said?" The learned ones among them replied, "O Allah's apostle, the wise ones amongst us did not say anything, but the youngsters amongst us said, 'May Allah forgive his apostle. He gives the querish and leaves the answer, in spite of the fact that our swords are still dribbling wet with the blood of the infidels.'" Allah's apostle replied, "I give to such people as are still close to the period of infidelity, that as they have recently embraced Islam and faith is still weak in their hearts, won't you be pleased to see people go with fortune, while you return with Allah's apostle to your houses? By Allah, what you will return with, is better than what they are returning with." The answer replied, "Yes, O Allah's apostle, we are satisfied." Then the Prophet said to them, "You will find after me, others being preferred to you. Then be patient till you meet Allah and meet his apostle at Al-Kawthar, that is a fount in paradise." Anas added, "But we did not remain patient." Number 376, narrated Jubair bin Mut'im, that while he was with Allah's apostle who was accompanied by the people on their way back from Hunayn, the Bedouins started begging things of Allah's apostle, so much so that they forced him to go under a samura tree where his loose outer garment was snatched away. On that, Allah's apostle stood up and said to them, "Return my garment to me. If I had as many camels as these trees, I would have distributed them amongst you. And you will not find me a miser or a liar or a coward." Number 377, narrated Anas bin Malik, "While I was walking with the Prophet who was wearing a Najrani outer garment with a thick hem, a Bedouin came upon the Prophet and pulled his garment so violently that I could recognize the impress of the hem of the garment on his shoulder, caused by the violence of his pull. Then the Bedouin said, 'Order for me something from Allah's fortune which you have.' The Prophet turned to him and smiled, and ordered that a gift be given to him." Number 378, narrated Abdullah, "On the day of the Battle of Hunayn, Allah's apostle favored some people in the distribution of the booty to the exclusion of others. He gave Al-Aqra bin Habis 100 camels, and he gave Uyayna the same amount, and also gave to some of the eminent Arabs, giving them preference in this regard. Then a person came and said, 'By Allah, in this distribution justice has not been observed, nor has Allah's pleasure been aimed at.' I said to him, 'By Allah, I will inform the Prophet of what you have said.' I went and informed him, and he said, 'If Allah and his apostle did not act justly, who else would act justly? May Allah be merciful to Moses, for he was harmed with more than this, yet he kept patient.'" Number 379, narrated Esma bin Abu Bakr, "I used to carry the date stones on my head from the land of Ezabar which Allah's apostle had given to him, and it was at a distance of 2/3 of a farsakh from my house." Narrated Hisham's father. The Prophet gave Ezabar a piece of land from the property of Bani and Nadir gained as war booty. Number 380, narrated Ibn Umar, Umar bin al-Khattab expelled all the Jews and Christians from the land of Hijaz. Allah's apostle, after conquering Khaybar, thought of expelling the Jews from the land which, after he conquered it, belonged to Allah, Allah's apostle and the Muslims. But the Jews requested Allah's apostle to leave them there on the condition that they would do the labor and get half of the fruits the land would yield. Allah's apostle said, "We shall keep you on these terms as long as we wish." Thus they stayed till the time of Umar's caliphate, when he expelled them to Taima and Arya. Number 381, narrated Abdullah bin Mufal, "While we were besieging the fort of Khaybar, a person threw a leather container containing fat, and I ran to take it, but when I turned I saw the Prophet standing behind, so I felt embarrassed in front of him." Number 382, narrated Ibn Umar, "In our holy battles, we used to get honey and grapes, as war booty which we would eat and would not store." Number 383, narrated Ibn Abi Awfa, "We were afflicted with hunger during the besiege of Khaybar, and when it was the day of the battle of Khaybar, we slaughtered the donkeys, and when the pots got boiling with their meat, Allah's apostle made an announcement that all the pots should be upset and that nobody should eat anything of the meat of the donkeys. We thought that the Prophet prohibited that because the Khumus had not been taken out of the booty, that is donkeys. Other people said, he prohibited eating them forever. The sub-narrator added, I asked Said bin Jubair, who said, he has made the eating of donkey's meat illegal forever. Number 384, narrated Umar bin Dinar, I was sitting with Jabir bin Zayd and Amr bin Aus, and Jali was narrating to them in 70 after Hijrah, the year when Musab bin Zubair was the leader of the pilgrims of Basra. We were sitting at the steps of Zamzam well, and Bajala said, I was the clerk of Juz bin Muawiyah, al-Anaf's paternal uncle. A letter came from Umar bin al-Khattab 1 year before his death. And it was read, cancel every marriage contracted among the Mahjins between relatives of close kinship, marriages that are regarded illegal in Islam, a relative of the sort being called du Muharram. Umar did not take the jizya from the Mahjin infidels till Abdurrahman bin Auf testified that Allah's apostle had taken the jizya from the Mahjins of Hajr. Number 385, narrated Amr bin Auf al-Ansari, who was an ally of Bam Amr bin Louis and one of those who had taken part in the Ghazwa of Badr. Allah's apostle sent Abu Ubaidah bin al-Jarrah to Bahrain to collect the jizya. Allah's apostle had established peace with the people of Bahrain and appointed Al-Ala bin al-Adrami as their governor. When Abu Ubaidah came from Bahrain with the money, the Ansar heard of Abu Ubaidah's arrival, which coincided with the time of the morning prayer with the Prophet. When Allah's apostle led them in the morning prayer and finished, the Ansar approached him, and he looked at them and smiled on seeing them and said, I feel that you have heard that Abu Ubaidah has brought something. They said, Yes, O Allah's apostle. He said, rejoice and hope for what will please you. By Allah, I am not afraid of your poverty, but I am afraid that you will lead a life of luxury as past nations did, whereupon you will compete with each other for it, as they competed for it, and it will destroy you as it destroyed them. Number 386, narrated Jubair bin Hayya, Umar sent the Muslims to the great countries to fight the pagans. When Al-Hurmuzan embraced Islam, Umar said to him, I would like to consult you regarding these countries which I intend to invade. Al-Hurmuzan said, Yes, the example of these countries and their inhabitants who are the enemies of the Muslims, is like a bird with a head, 2 wings and 2 legs. If one of its wings got broken, it would get up over its 2 legs, with 1 wing and the head. And if the other wing got broken, it would get up with 2 legs and a head, but if its head got destroyed, then the 2 legs, 2 wings and the head would become useless. The head stands for Khosrau, and 1 wing stands for Caesar and the other wing stands for Faris. So, order the Muslims to go towards Khosrau. So, Umar sent us to Khosrau, appointing Nu'man bin Muqrin as our commander. When we reached the land of the enemy, the representative of Khosrau came out with 40,000 warriors, and an interpreter got up saying, Let one of you talk to me. Al-Mughira replied, Ask whatever you wish. The other asked, Who are you? Al-Mughira replied, We are some people from the Arabs. We led a hard, miserable, disastrous life. We used to suck the hides and the date stones from hunger. We used to wear clothes made up of fur of camels and hair of goats, and to worship trees and stones. While we were in this state, the Lord of the heavens and the earths, elevated is his remembrance and majestic is his highness, sent to us from among ourselves a prophet whose father and mother are known to us. Our prophet, the messenger of our Lord, has ordered us to fight you till you worship Allah alone or give jizya, that is tribute. And our prophet has informed us that our Lord says, Whoever amongst us is killed, that is martyred, shall go to paradise to lead such a luxurious life as he has never seen, and whoever amongst us remain alive, shall become your master. Al-Mughira then blamed Nu'man for delaying the attack, and Nu'man said to Al-Mughira, If you had participated in a similar battle, in the company of Allah's apostle, he would not have blamed you for waiting, nor would he have disgraced you. But I accompanied Allah's apostle in many battles, and it was his custom that if he did not fight early by daytime, he would wait till the wind had started blowing and the time for the prayer was due, that is after midday. Number 387, narrated Abu Humayd Asadi, we accompanied the Prophet in the Ghazwa of Tabuk, and the king of Ayla presented a white mule and a cloak as a gift to the Prophet. And the Prophet wrote to him a peace treaty allowing him to keep authority over his country. Number 388, narrated Juwayriyah bin Qudama at-Tamimi, we said to Umar bin al-Khattab, "Joe, chief of the believers, advise us." He said, "I advise you to fulfill Allah's convention made with the dhimmis, as it is the convention of your Prophet and the source of the livelihood of your dependents, that is the taxes from the dhimmis." Number 389, narrated Yahya bin said, once the Prophet called the Ansar in order to grant them part of the land of Bahrain. On that they said, "No. By Allah, we will not accept it unless you grant a similar thing to our Quraysh brothers as well." He said, "That will be theirs if Allah wishes." But when the Ansar persisted in their request, he said, "After me you will see others given preference over you in this respect, in which case you should be patient till you meet me at the tank of Al-Kawthar." Number 390, narrated Jabir bin Abdullah, Allah's apostle once said to me, "If the revenue of Bahrain came, I would give you this much and this much." When Allah's apostle had died, the revenue of Bahrain came, and Abu Bakr announced, "Let whoever was promised something by Allah's apostle come to me." So, I went to Abu Bakr and said, "Allah's apostle said to me, if the revenue of Bahrain came, I would give you this much and this much." On that Abu Bakr said to me, "Scoop money with both your hands." I scooped money with both my hands, and Abu Bakr asked me to count it. I counted it, and it was 500 gold pieces. The total amount he gave me was 1,500 gold pieces. Narrated Anas, money from Bahrain was brought to the Prophet. He said, "Spread it in the mosque." It was the biggest amount that had ever been brought to Allah's apostle. In the meantime Al-Abbas came to him and said, "O Allah's apostle, give me, for I gave the ransom of myself and Aqil." The Prophet said to him, "Take." He scooped money with both hands and poured it in his garment and tried to lift it, but he could not, and appealed to the Prophet, "Will you order someone to help me in lifting it?" The Prophet said, "No." Then Al-Abbas said, "Then will you yourself help me carry it?" The Prophet said, "No." Then Al-Abbas threw away some of the money, but even then he was not able to lift it, and so he again requested the Prophet, "Will you order someone to help me carry it?" The Prophet said, "No." Then Al-Abbas said, "Then will you yourself help me carry it?" The Prophet said, "No." So, Al-Abbas threw away some more money and lifted it on his shoulder and went away. The Prophet kept on looking at him with astonishment at his greediness till he went out of our sight. Allah's apostle did not get up from there till not a single dirham remained from that money. Number 391, narrated Abdullah bin Amr, the Prophet said, "Whoever killed a person having a treaty with the Muslims, shall not smell the smell of paradise though its smell is perceived from a distance of 40 years. Number 392, narrated Abu Hurairah, while we were in the mosque, the Prophet came out and said, "Let us go to the Jews." We went out till we reached Bayt al-Midras. He said to them, "If you embrace Islam, you will be safe. You should know that the earth belongs to Allah and His Apostle, and I want to expel you from this land. So, if anyone amongst you owns some property, he is permitted to sell it, otherwise you should know that the earth belongs to Allah and His Apostle." Number 393, narrated Said bin Jubair, that he heard Ibn Abbas saying, "Thursday. And you know not what Thursday is?" After that Ibn Abbas wept till the stones on the ground were soaked with his tears. On that I asked Ibn Abbas, "What is about Thursday?" He said, "When the condition, that is health, of Allah's apostle deteriorated, he said, 'Bring me a bone of scapula, so that I may write something for you after which you will never go astray.'" The people differed in their opinions, although it was improper to differ in front of a prophet. They said, "What is wrong with him? Do you think he is delirious? Ask him to understand." The Prophet replied, "Leave me, as I am in a better state than what you are asking me to do." Then the Prophet ordered them to do 3 things, saying, turn out all the pagans from the Arabian Peninsula, show respect to all foreign delegates by giving them gifts as I used to do. The sub-narrator added, the third order was something beneficial which either Ibn Abbas did not mention or he mentioned but I forgot. Number 394, narrated Abu Hurairah, when Khaybar was conquered, a roasted poisoned sheep was presented to the prophets as a gift by the Jews. The Prophet ordered, let all the Jews who have been here, be assembled before me. The Jews were collected and the Prophet said to them, I am going to ask you a question. Will you tell the truth? They said, yes. The Prophet asked, who is your father? They replied, so and so. He said, you have told a lie. Your father is so and so. They said, you are right. He said, will you now tell me the truth, if I ask you about something? They replied, yes, O Abu al-Qasim. And if we should tell a lie, you can realize our lie as you have done regarding our father. On that he asked, who are the people of the hellfire? They said, we shall remain in the hellfire for a short period, and after that you will replace us. The Prophet said, you may be cursed and humiliated in it. By Allah, we shall never replace you in it. Then he asked, will you now tell me the truth if I ask you a question? They said, yes, O Abu al-Qasim. He asked, have you poisoned the sheep? They said, yes. He asked, what made you do so? They said, we wanted to know if you were a liar, in which case we would get rid of you, and if you are a prophet then the poison would not harm you. Number 395, narrated Asim, I asked Anas about the Qunut, that is invocation in the prayer. Anas said, it should be recited before bowing. I said, so and so claims that you say that it should be recited after bowing. He replied, he is mistaken. Then Anas narrated to us that the Prophet invoked evil on the tribe of Bani Sulaim for 1 month after bowing. Anas further said, the Prophet had sent 40 or 70 Qaris, that is men well versed in the knowledge of the Quran, to some pagans, but the latter struggled with them and martyred them, although there was a peace pact between them and the Prophet. I had never seen the Prophet so sorry and worried about anybody as he was about them, that is the Qaris. Number 396, narrated Hani, the daughter of Abu Talib, I went to Allah's Apostle on the day of the conquest of Mecca and found him taking a bath, and his daughter Fatima was screening him. I greeted him and he asked, who is that? I said, I, Hani bint Abi Talib. He said, welcome, O Hani. When he had finished his bath, he stood up and offered 8 rakat while dressed in 1 garment. I said, O Allah's Apostle, my brother Ali has declared that he will kill a man to whom I have granted asylum. The man is so-and-so bin Hubayra. Allah's Apostle said, O Hani, we will grant asylum to the one whom you have granted asylum. Hani said, that visit took place in the duha, that is forenoon. Number 397, narrated Ibrahim at-Tamimi's father, Ali delivered a sermon saying, we have no book to read except the book of Allah and what is written in this paper, which contains verdicts regarding retaliation for wounds, the ages of the camels given as zakat or as blood money, and the fact that Medina is a sanctuary in between Air Mountain to so-and-so mountain, so, whoever innovates in it in heresy or commits a sin or gives shelter in it, to such an innovator will incur the curse of Allah, the angels and all the people, and none of his compulsory or optional good deeds of worship will be accepted. And whoever freed slave takes as his master, that is, befriends other than his real masters, will incur the same curse. Any asylum granted by any Muslim is to be secured by all the other Muslims, and whoever betrays a Muslim in this respect will incur the same curse. Number 398, narrated Sahal bin Abi Hathma, Abdullah bin Sahal and Muhayyisa bin Mazud bin Zayd set out to Khaybar, the inhabitants of which had a peace treaty with the Muslims at that time. They parted, and later on Muhayyisa came upon Abdullah bin Sa'd and found him murdered, agitating in his blood. He buried him and returned to Medina. Abdurrahman bin Sahal, Muhayyisa and Huwawisa, The sons of Mas'ud came to the Prophet, and Abdurrahman intended to talk, but the Prophet said to him, "Let the eldest of you speak." As Abdurrahman was the youngest, Abdurrahman kept silent and the other two spoke. The Prophet said, "If you swear as to who has committed the murder, you will have the right to take your right from the murderer." They said, "How should we swear if we did not witness the murder or see the murderer?" The Prophet said, "Then the Jews can clear themselves from the charge by taking Alaska an oath taken by men that it was not they who committed the murder." The Y said, "How should we believe in the oaths of infidels?" So, the Prophet himself paid the blood money of Abdullah. See Hadith number 36 volume 9. Number 399, narrated Abdullah bin Abbas, that Abu Sufyan bin Harb informed him that Heraclius called him and the members of a caravan from Quraysh who had gone to Sham as traders, during the truce which Allah's Apostle had concluded with Abu Sufyan and the Quraysh infidels. Number 400, narrated Aisha, once the Prophet was bewitched so that he began to imagine that he had done a thing which in fact he had not done. Number 401, narrated Auf bin Mali, I went to the Prophet during the Ghazwa of Tabuk while he was sitting in a leather tent. He said, "Count 6 signs that indicate the approach of the hour my death, the conquest of Jerusalem, a plague that will afflict you and kill you in great numbers as the plague that afflicts sheep, the increase of wealth to such an extent that even if one is given 100 dinars, he will not be satisfied. Then an affliction which no Arab house will escape, and then a truce between you and Bani al-Asfar, that is the Byzantines, who will betray you and attack you under 80 flags. Under each flag will be 12,000 soldiers." Number 402, narrated Abu Hurairah, Abu Bakr, on the day of Nahar, that is slaughtering of animals for sacrifice, sent me in the company of others to make this announcement: after this year, no pagan will be allowed to perform the Hajj, and none will be allowed to perform the Tawaf of the Kaaba undressed. And the day of Al-Hajj al-Akbar is the day of Nahar, and it called Al-Akbar because the people call the Umrah al-Hajj al-Asghar, that is the minor Hajj. Abu Bakr threw back the pagans' covenant that year, and therefore, no pagan performed the Hajj in the year of Hajj al-Wada of the Prophets. Number 403, narrated Abdullah bin Amr, Allah's Apostle said, "Whoever has the following 4 characteristics will be a pure hypocrite: if he speaks, he tells a lie; if he gives a promise, he breaks it; if he makes a covenant, he proves treacherous; and if he quarrels, he behaves in a very imprudent, evil, insulting manner, unjust. And whoever has one of these characteristics, has one characteristic of a hypocrite, unless he gives it us." Number 404, narrated Ali, "We did not write anything from the Prophet except the Quran and what is written in this paper, wherein the Prophet said, Medina is a sanctuary from the mountain of air to so and so, therefore, whoever innovates in it in heresy or commits a sin, or gives shelter to such an innovator, will incur the curse of Allah, the angels and all the people. And none of his compulsory or optional good deeds of worship will be accepted, and the asylum granted by any Muslim is to be secured by all the Muslims, even if it is granted by one of the lowest social status among them. And whoever betrays a Muslim in this respect will incur the curse of Allah, the angels and all the people, and his compulsory and optional good deeds of worship will not be accepted. And any freed slave will take as masters befriends people other than his own real masters who freed him without taking the permission of the latter, will incur the curse of Allah, the angels and all the people, and his compulsory and optional good deeds of worship will not be accepted." Narrated said, Abu Hurairah once said to the people, "What will your state be when you can get no dinar or dirham, that is, taxes from the dhimmis?" On that someone asked him, "What makes you know that the state will take place, O Abu Hurairah?" He said, "By him in whose hands Abu Hurairah's life is, I know it through the statement of the true and truly inspired one, that is the Prophet." The people asked, "What does the statement say?" He replied, "Allah and his apostles' asylum granted to dhimmis, that is non-Muslims living in a Muslim territory, will be outraged, and so Allah will make the hearts of these dhimmis so daring that they will refuse to pay the jizya they will be supposed to pay." Number 405, narrated Al-Amash, I asked Abu Wa'il, "Did you take part in the Battle of Siffin?" He said, "Yes, and I heard Sahal bin Hunayf when he was blamed for lack of zeal for fighting saying, "You'd better blame your wrong opinions. I wish you had seen me on the day of Abu Jandal. If I had the courage to disobey the Prophet's orders, I would have done so. We had kept out swords on our necks and shoulders, for a thing which frightened us. And we did so, we found it easier for us, except in the case of the above battle of ours." Number 406, narrated Abu Wa'il, "We were in Siffin and Sahal bin Hunayf got up and said, 'O people, blame yourselves. We were with the Prophet on the day of Hudaybiyah, and if we had been called to fight, we would have fought. But Umar bin al-Khattab came and said, O Allah's Apostle, aren't we in the right and our opponents in the wrongs?' Allah's Apostle said, Yes. Umar said, Aren't our killed persons in paradise and theirs in hell? He said, Yes. Umar said, Then why should we accept hard terms in matters concerning our religion? Shall we return before Allah judges between us and them? Allah's Apostle said, O Ibn al-Khattab, I am the Apostle of Allah and Allah will never degrade me. Then Umar went to Abu Bakr and told him the same as he had told the Prophet. On that Abu Bakr said to Umar, He is the Apostle of Allah and Allah will never degrade him. Then Surat al-Fath, that his victory was revealed, and Allah's Apostle recited it to the end in front of Umar. On that Umar asked, O Allah's Apostle, was it that is the Hudaybiyah Treaty of Victory? Allah's Apostle said, Yes. Number 407, narrated Asma bint Abi Bakr, during the period of the peace treaty of Quraysh with Allah's Apostle, my mother, accompanied by her father, came to visit me, and she was a pagan. I consulted Allah's Apostle, O Allah's Apostle, my mother has come to me and she desires to receive a reward from me, shall I keep good relation with her? He said, Yes, keep good relation with her. Number 408, narrated Al-Bara, when the Prophet intended to perform the Umrah, he sent a person to the people of Mecca asking their permission to enter Mecca. They stipulated that he would not stay for more than 3 days and would not enter it except with sheathed arms and would not preach Islam to any of them. So Ali bin Abi Talib started writing the treaty between them. He wrote, This is what Muhammad, Apostle of Allah, has agreed to. The Meccans says, If we knew that you Muhammad are the Apostle of Allah, then we would not have prevented you and would have followed you. But write, This is what Muhammad bin Abdullah has agreed to. On that Allah's Apostle said, By Allah, I am Muhammad bin Abdullah, and, by Allah, I am Apostle of Allah. Allah's Apostle used not to write. So he asked Ali to erase the expression of Apostle of Allah. On that Ali said, By Allah, I will never erase it. Allah's Apostle said to Ali, Let me see the paper. When Ali showed him the paper, the Prophet erased the expression with his own hand. When Allah's Apostle had entered Mecca and 3 days had elapsed, the Meccans came to Ali and said, Let your friend that is the Prophet quit Mecca. Ali informed Allah's Apostle about it and Allah's Apostle said, Yes, and then he departed. Number 409, narrated Abdullah, while the Prophet was in a state of prostration, surrounded by a group of people from Quraysh pagans. Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt came and brought the intestines of a camel and threw them on the back of the Prophet. The Prophet did not raise his head from prostration till Fatima, that is his daughter, came and removed those intestines from his back, and invoked evil on whoever had done the evil deed. The Prophet said, O Allah, destroy the chiefs of Quraysh, O Allah. Destroy Abu Jahl bin Hisham, Utbah bin Rabi'ah, Shayba bin Rabi'ah, Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, Umayyah bin Khalaf or Ubay bin Khalaf. Later on I saw all of them killed during the battle of Badr and their bodies were thrown into a well except the body of Umayyah or Ubay, because he was a fat person, and when he was pulled, the parts of his body got separated before he was thrown into the well. Number 410, narrated Anas, the Prophet said, Every betrayer will have a flag on the day of resurrection. One of the two sub-narrators said that the flag would be fixed, and the other said that it would be shown on the day of resurrection. so that the betrayer might be recognized by it. Number 411, narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet said, every betrayer will have a flag which will be fixed on the day of resurrection, and the flag's prominence will be made in order to show the betrayal he committed. Number 412, narrated Ibn Abbas, Allah's Apostle said on the day of the conquest of Mecca, there is no migration now, but there is jihad, that is holy battle and good intentions. And when you are called for jihad, you should come out at once. Allah's Apostle also said, on the day of the conquest of Mecca, Allah has made this town a sanctuary since the day He created the heavens and the earth. So, it is a sanctuary by Allah's decree till the day of resurrection. Fighting in it was not legal for anyone before me, and it was made legal for me only for an hour by daytime. So, it that is Mecca is a sanctuary by Allah's decree till the day of resurrection. Its thorny bushes should not be cut, and its game should not be chased, its fallen property that is lakata should not be picked up except by one who will announce it publicly. And its grass should not be uprooted. On that Al-Abbas said, O Allah's Apostle, except the idkar, because it is used by the goldsmiths and by the people for their houses. On that the Prophet said, except the idkar,